Spoilers ahead for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Hey guys, welcome once again to the Script Department. Today, Caleb and I are going to delve headfirst into the mind-bending world of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy what we do over here. And feel free to pop over to the website where you can check out what our global network of screenwriters are doing. That was great, wasn't it? Did I pull that off? That was. I
think so.
Flawless and seamless.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Keep going. Hey man, we are fresh off. If you're joining us from our Moon Knight review, then welcome back. If you are not joining us from our Moon Knight review, then welcome anyway. We're fresh off that one. Where we were discussing the finale of Moon Knight and just kind of checking that out. And that came out yesterday, I think. For you guys, and now we're going to delve into another Marvel property, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which I think there's some themes going on here between these two reviews and between these two properties, which I think is going to be kind of interesting and certainly not overt themes. But Caleb, what did you think, man? Did you enjoy it?
I'm interested to hear your take because you kind of dropped a little bit last episode, and I want to hear yours first.
All right, okay. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. While I was in the cinema, I was sat there like I needed some escapism in my life. At that particular moment in time, and I just went and sat down. And I was just like, I just went and sat down, and I was like, wow, this is great, colors and brightness and all this stuff. And I really enjoyed it. There were things that stuck out to me, and honestly, it's as I've thought about it since, it's begun to unravel a bit in my mind, which is quite interesting. It happens sometimes with films that you, at the time, you're like, and then you sit back and you go,
yeah,
hang on a minute.
yeah.
And there are a few things, and the point that I alluded to in the Moon Knight review, which I'll get straight into, is that I'm finding it really strange that these films don't seem to be forming a coherent narrative. Like we have had multiverse stuff going on in WandaVision, or suggestions of anyway. We've had multiverse stuff in Loki, multiple stuff as well, multiverse stuff in Loki, and in a big way, we've had an entire series called What If of multiverse stuff. We've then had Spider-Man No Way Home, more direct multiverse, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness felt to me as if it should pull these threads together in and kind of go, right, okay, so all this is happening because of Loki, and then we've got the thing that happened with Spider-Man, and we don't remember Spider-Man anymore. I feel like the guy from Ant-Man. It was a really cool explosion, man, and then this happened, and oh my god, and he came out of something like that. I thought it was going to be a case of you have, and because I think the marketing made it look as though it was like you have opened up this world to the multiverse. It's your fault. You've done this, and you don't have to fix it. Now, I think the marketing, and there's some good stuff about the marketing that I will talk about in a minute as well. But there's the marketing pitched a different movie for me, and the movie it pitched was Stephen Strange. You fucked up. Excuse my French. You and we are in. Yeah. It's nice. You like that one?
So cultured. I didn't know you spoke French.
Oui, monsieur. You've screwed up.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I liked it. You've screwed up. You need to fix this problem. So we in what's left of I can't remember what it's called now. In Loki, the thing, the place that it all takes place in.
Haven't watched it.
Oh, you haven't watched it? Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I know about it, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
Full spoilers.
Okay, you sure?
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So whatever that's called, and I can't remember what it's called now, but the kind of the protecting the sacred timeline, whatever's left of that, we are pulling you in because you've screwed this up, and we need you to help fix the timeline, because all this stuff in the happened. And what if exists as just an exploration of the multiverse and the possibilities of the multiverse. Spider-Man is the trigger point. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, is the thing that deals with it. And wraps up some of those threads from Loki, or at least explores some of those threads from Loki. And I was so excited for that movie, because that, I think, is I made some leaps with that. It's not all there in the trailer, but I made some leaps with that. And I thought, this is sick. This is going to be so exciting. I'm excited to see how they pull the threads together. So imagine my surprise when we're sat there in the cinema, and this random multiverse traveler that is not connected to anything happens to appear with Stephen Strange, and he goes, "Yeah, man, we had some experience with the multiverse recently with Spider-Man." Oh, so that's just got nothing to do with this then.
Yeah.
and so to link it back round again to my point. By the way, I enjoyed this film. Doesn't sound like it, but I did. And to link it, I really did. But to link it back around to that point I was making at the end of the Moon Knight review, which is in terms of the MCU setting a precedent for its overarching stories, I feel like we're not getting that anymore. I feel like there isn't a direction in the same way there is anymore. Now, it might be that this is just another part of the overall thing, and we're drawing threads together, and we're going to get Avengers, Multiverse Wars or Secret Wars or
Secret Wars,
whatever it might be. And maybe that's what we're doing, but if that's the case, then that's what this should have been. And that's what, because, and if that's not the case, then it should have been a greater exploration of it, because we actually didn't get that much multiverse. Like, we went to like three worlds.
Yeah, for me, the multiverse was that montage of them falling through it, and then
great montage.
It's very much like two universes.
Yeah.
Even that's an exaggeration, yes, but yeah.
But not by that much, though. Not that much of an exaggeration. Like, I think there might be four. It's our universe, the universe with the Illuminati, and John Krasinski, man, just wandering in there, absolutely stealing the show. Amazing, just so great. And Patrick Stewart as well. I mean, all of that, just such great stuff. And seeing that alternate reality where Thanos is lying there dead on the thing, and it's like, oh man, all of that is just so great.
Some fun stuff. Yeah,
there's some fun stuff, but I think for me, the overarching question is, where is my universe? Where is my cinematic universe of stories that intertwine in a substantial way, in a way that isn't name dropping people, name dropping characters, and name dropping little bits and bobs here and there. And what that leads to in terms of a question is, do these films stand alone? Can they stand alone as individual films? Because if we are moving away from this overarching storytelling thing, which I don't think we are entirely, but certainly it's not as prevalent as it was in that those first few phases. It's just not so much there anymore. And so if we are moving away from that a little bit, can they sustain themselves on their own? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that that kind of hits the main thing that I worry about with these movies, and I've kind of strayed away from being a Marvel everything. That's why I haven't watched Loki. Like, I try to watch stuff, and especially the stuff that gets some hype, where I'm like, oh, this is something new that's has an interesting point of view, has an interesting idea behind it. So, like, and I just haven't got around to Loki, but I still want to.
It's very good.
I enjoyed, and I enjoyed WandaVision. But so the worry that I have is with the It's in the fantastic name, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I love
Yeah.
that name. It's so perfect,
Yeah.
and it's so fitting for Sam Raimi,
Absolutely.
who
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
who I love also. Who the
Excels
Evil Dead.
himself in this as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I grew up on Spider Man,
Yeah.
um, as many people did, but like really, like as a kid watching those,
Hmm.
not as a like a 20-year-old watching them.
Sure.
Um, there's so like those were very influential in my childhood.
Mm.
But once I got around to the Evil Dead, uh, was probably actually Army of Darkness is what I saw first.
Ah.
Didn't
Okay.
realize I didn't know its relation to Evil Dead,
Mm.
but Army of Darkness was playing on AMC back whenever it was only old movies
Oh
and
wow. Cool.
on TV. And so like it was just on, and it was like maybe the second half of the movie, and I was like, what is this movie? And I remember, I think I watched it with my dad, and we were just like, this is
Nice.
kind of hilarious. Like, it looks like it's so cheesy and old, and like the way I would have described it back then was bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's a B movie, but I didn't have the film literacy of
Yeah.
that I do,
Yeah.
that developed, to where I'm like, oh no, this is great. Like this is on purpose and so
Yeah.
much fun. And then whenever I got into my angsty teenage years of
Sure.
film watching, where you hit all the milestones,
Oh
Memento,
yeah.
Evil Dead, all the things that make a budding film enthusiast.
Yeah.
And so like
For sure. You do the
so I watched
whistle
Evil
stop
Dead.
tour of Tarantino and M Night Shyamalan.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Reservoir Dogs, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh man, yeah. And then you write your first script that
Hmm.
is basically just Reservoir Dogs.
I remember.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, but so really, like once I made it to the Evil Dead, that was kind of the first time I had realized what a director with a very specific style could do. Um,
Yeah.
and there's all the history behind the Evil Dead, but like if you look at Sam Raimi's work, like there's you see the weirdness in Spider-Man. Like it feels weird. It feels like a comic book movie, but
Mm.
it definitely didn't carry over into what the MCU is now.
Sure, sure, sure.
Even though he invented, started kickstarted
Yeah.
the movies, the superhero movies genre, being successful, or very successful.
Mm.
Uh, don't roast me.
Yeah. It's
But
your
so
turn,
like,
Caleb. It's your turn now.
yeah, right. But so yeah, you have this director with a very specific tone and voice and style, that's like you can track back to all of like his first movies. That like that was kind of the first time I had really been like, oh, this is on purpose. This
Mhm.
is a what a director can do.
Yeah.
And then you hear Sam Raimi talk, and it all makes sense. You're like, oh, yeah, that's the guy who made all these movies, and like he's just seems like a fun guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can hear it in his voice, and it makes sense.
It does,
And
yeah.
so yeah, so that's my background with him. And so coming into this, I was very excited that he was directing it,
Stoked.
because I was like,
Yeah.
what's he cooked up for us now? If Kevin Feige really like let him go.
Yeah.
Um,
And he did let him
and
go as well. Like, oh
he
wow.
did, he did. But the first act, I was a little worried.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
So whenever I saw it, yeah, yeah. So yeah, we so saw it last night, and pretty late, and the movie started and the first act was going, and I was like, this is not madness.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is fine, but it's not the Raimi that I was
Hoping
hoping
for.
for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so like there was, even from the start of the movie, it's kind of very fits into the MCU tonally very well. But
Hmm.
to finish out the point of the title, the Multiverse of Madness, um, there's the worry that I have is multiverse is very mumbo jumbo,
Yeah.
and that's also how magic is too in movies. A lot of the time, it doesn't make sense, so you can't explain it. So
Hmm.
therefore, it becomes kind of boring.
Yeah.
Um, and so that had me worried about the MCU overall, because it's the more convoluted it gets, the less I care,
Hmm.
and the less, like, the more you start to lose other people. And so
Yeah.
that's why, like, I think that's kind of goes in with what you were saying about how it's, it doesn't really feel like these have weight now.
Mm.
Whenever what we have been promised and delivered on in the past is
Yeah.
this unified universe
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
stories that are cohesive and like develop upon each other, which this one does in a good way,
Hmm.
um, character wise. Uh, but you, it's it's riding that line to me to where it's like, oh no, like this is a slippery slope
Yeah.
of where it starts to become too convoluted to just the point where I lose interest,
Yeah.
because uh, I'm still happy to watch things and talk about them critically and enjoy things.
Mhm.
But if if the more you lose a casual audience,
Yeah.
the the that's the slippery slope, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's a it feels to me as if they're still setting up, and we are, and because you're right, the multiverse as an idea is pretty convoluted. I like it. I'm into it. I think it's cool, but it needs to be. They need to get on with it. They need to get on with it now, and I don't feel as if they're getting on with it now. From this film, and I think that's where I have a pretty. I will give Marvel quite a lot of leash, I suppose, and I'm happy to let them go, and I'm happy to let them kind of take me. But I did come out of this a little bit as I thought about it and kind of gone, okay, let's get on with it now. Like let's start delivering on some of these promises. Let's start delivering on some of
Yeah,
these setups.
yeah. The multiverse as an idea alone cannot carry us for too
No,
long.
no,
Which, to get into the movie, I don't know if you're ready to do that, but
absolutely, yeah, go for it.
um, but the movie delivers on that. It delivers on the multiverse of madness.
Hmm.
There is madness, and I got what I wanted in Act Two,
Yeah, 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 for sure.
and I got the Sam Raimi unhinged Kevin Feige handing over, the keys to the
Yeah,
car
here you go,
and
go
just
play.
taking us, yeah, go
Yeah,
play,
yeah, yeah,
which is fun. Like, watching some interviews with him, there's some fun stuff. You can tell that he's had some, based on Spider-Man 3, he has some trust issues of taking back over a
yeah.
superhero movie. So I'm
Understandable.
happy to see that and see him be supported in that way, because like he just makes fun movies.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
He I love his style. Like, it's so messy, and it makes sense because he made the Evil Dead.
yeah,
And those movies are messy, and it's not like a fully, like, this movie's messy tonally, uh for better or worse. But it's got the director's stamp on it.
it does. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So all the
This
problems that it does have, yeah. Go
this
ahead.
is it. It's a it the horror elements to dive into that as a particular thing. There's some great moments here, uh, which I wasn't expecting, because I went into this thinking and we've had this conversation recently. I'm not a huge horror fan, and this is
Ah,
potentially we're going to end up with a little. I'm going to save this because we're going to be covering on our next rewatch podcast. We're going to be covering The Thing, which is Caleb's decision,
yes.
and it's a blind spot for me. I've not seen it, so I'm excited and nervous to watch that. But I will cover this ground when we get there. But horror. I love writing horror. I love writing ghost stories, and I love writing that scary stuff. but I'm not very good at watching it because I get spooked. To be completely honest, I get spooked and I don't sleep, and that is kind of that. And so I didn't expect Kevin Feige to give quite so much control of this over to Sam Raimi, and I'm so glad he did, because it was there were these moments here, but it spooked me. I can tell you that much. There's a moment there's the moment where they're in the tunnel, and Wanda, who I just want to talk about all the time, and we'll get to Wanda as a part of this, but like Wanda's following them through the tunnel, and you come around the corner, and she's suddenly there, and her eyes are going and everything, and I yelped in the cinema is what I did. I yelped in the cinema, and it was quite embarrassing. But it's so effective, and that's the point. Is that I think that's possibly why this is so effective, because you don't necessarily expect it from a Marvel movie, and it comes out and it does it so well. And it does it, and those elements, and they feel so neatly tacked in there. She is utterly terrifying throughout. Like there's bits of body horror going on in there. There's you've got jump scares, you've got deep kind of existential dread woven in there into these horror elements, and it's just like, oh man, more of this. This is great. That's exactly the level of horror I can deal with. I enjoyed it, and it's like 12. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm okay with this. But it's so perfectly woven into the fabric of it, and it's one of those things where I think the MCU works at its best when you hand a director a project and you let them do their thing. And so, like James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, Taika Waititi with Thor, now Raimi with Doctor Strange, like. Yeah, these are the best of them when this happens, and this is I don't know that I would describe it as one of the best Marvel movies, but I do think it has some of the best Marvel moments in there.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree. But I would disagree also, because I don't want to disagree. But no, like I had some problems with this movie though. Although taking the everything else that I've talked about already out of it, I do have some problems. I feel like the messiness of the tone, although it's what you get with this director, which is great. If we look at it in a broader view of the MCU has some problems, specifically on the tone shift of the very hard tone shift where a lot of characters die, which I can get into now.
You go for it.
So I'm going to spoil the Suicide Squad, the beginning of it, if you haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
I actually haven't, but you go ahead. Oh, okay. No, you go ahead. So I did it to Loki for you. It's kind of required. You go ahead. Yeah.
So that movie kicks off with a bang of, this is the Suicide Squad. In the name, everyone's like, a ton of people are going to die. It's the danger is set up in the name. It's set up in the opening moments of the movie that any character is going to die. Yep. And that tone is clearly conveyed and is effective because of how that scene shifts in the very beginning.
Okay.
It's sickening almost to me. And James Gunn, I grew up on Starship Troopers. I watched violent movies all the time. Troopers, great. But for some reason, I can handle anything. But for some reason, James Gunn's movies where he does violence always like affects me in a certain way. And this kind of did too. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I think it's the mixture of practical effects with sound effects. He does a lot of head bursting, and it's very chunky and juicy. So I think it might be that, but it's his tone. It's the effective way that he uses the tone to sell the violence, because that's what I would argue with this. So there's been a lot of backlash for this being PG-13. and saying like that, this should have been rated R. The violence comes out of nowhere. And that was the problem watching it initially that I had with it, is that we are aware of this universe and these movies, and characters don't die in them. But to then go into another universe and murder violently these main characters, so like the Illuminati all get taken out.
Yeah.
In a very like the it's very similar to Suicide Squad. I mean, the Suicide Squad's probably like still worse, but that tone shift where I don't remember the character's name, where he loses his mouth, the
Black
Pitchfork
Bolt
guy, whatever. Black Bolt, yeah.
Black Bolt, that's it.
Where he loses his mouth, that is a clear, like, we are in a totally different movie now.
Yeah.
Which, if you didn't have a director like Sam Raimi, I would say doesn't work at all. But because of that, this movie isolated, I'm okay with, because of the director and the way that he did it. But if I'm looking at it from an MCU standpoint, I don't buy it, and it feels weird, because using the Suicide Squad as the example, where that movie kicks off and tells you the tone that you're getting, this movie doesn't, but it develops. And so you still get the funhouse effect, where I would like the first act, which is what I had the problem with, just because it was just kind of a typical first act. Everything develops very quickly. By the time, and I got really worried actually, where she's flying around and they're shooting all their magic off, and I was like, oh man, this is mumbo jumbo, and I'm not like, I just kind of glazed over. And then she gets inside and she goes into the funhouse and she sees her reflection, and that is really like where the movie starts to shift in tone. Yeah. And Raimi pulls out his like his directing chops, his tilt zooms, and the Evil Dead stuff.
Oh my god, yeah. Big
and
time,
so
big
like
time.
Yeah, so like of course I love that, and I had a fun time watching that. But still, like, if I'm I'm looking at it through the viewpoint of, this is the MCU that's been built for us, and we need to, the tone that's been sold to us shifts to where I almost don't buy going into another universe and murdering everyone and then coming back and still having where characters have plot armor. That's the problem that I had with it.
Yeah.
It's, even though I still enjoyed it, there's like, the Illuminati was so much fun.
Yeah.
But to jump back to the PG-13 rating, to jump back to that, the reason it's not more violent than anything, I mean, it's violent, but it's not more violent than other movies that we've seen. And it doesn't really call for a rated R movie, but the reason is because it's effective violence. Like, it's offensive because it's effective.
Yeah. It's well directed.
Yeah. And that's like, same with the Suicide Squad. It's effective because it's well directed. And so like, I think it's a little weird for me to watch that in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, given all that, the surrounding stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm into it.
See, so. This is the thing, isn't it? And I think I'm with you on it entirely. Like, I think my thing with that is that I don't buy Wanda. I think that's what it is, and I think that's, for me, is, as much as I agree with you on the tone entirely, and I loved it as well. It's I hadn't considered it in quite such an eloquent way as you've put it, but I did. But I as you were saying, I was like, yeah, man, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. But for me,
and by the time it gets to that moment, oh sorry,
yeah, no, it's okay, go.
No, well, by the time it gets to the moment that scared you, it's full on horror, and it's a great progression. And it's directed so well, but it's given everything surrounding that I kind of had a problem with.
Yeah, so. And I think that's the thing, is that this film in isolation, maybe this answers the question I posed at the start of this video in the sense of, can you take this film on its own? Yeah, I think you can. Maybe you
Yeah.
can. Maybe you actually can take this on its own. But Wanda, I don't buy her as the villain, and I think this is one of those things where I think this film needed to happen later. I think we needed more setup. I think we needed more of Wanda. I think we needed more multiverse stuff happening beforehand in a way that was still, that was actually. I don't know. I maybe not, but like I think we needed more Wanda. We needed more of that because when we left her at the end of WandaVision, she was looking into her power, but she was exploring it in a pretty kind of like on the level sort of way, and she'd
Like there's
resolved a lot of her
her
stuff
character
there.
progresses, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it resolves that
yeah,
show. I was trying to remember the end of that. Yeah, so it
yeah.
does resolve her.
She accepts the fact that that what she did was wrong. She accepts that and she apologizes for it. She tries to make amends. She accepts Vision's death, and she accepts it. She has it's a lovely closure for her character, and this here forces her back into that headspace in a way that I don't feel is very natural for the character. And I feel as though what they did there is and again, this is the story. This is the universe thing. This is the universe building that we don't not getting this time around with Marvel. Is that that wouldn't have happened. That would not, that kind of jarring disparity between projects would not have occurred within one character in previous Marvel projects, in previous Marvel phases, and and I found it distracting. And I think for me, what you're saying as tone, I think I was looking at as Wanda, and I think it's probably probably a really similar thing. I think it's a similar problem we have there because tonally, she as a character was just not. I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe her. While she was terrifying, and again, brilliant performance from Elizabeth Olsen. My God, like it's just a powerhouse
Oh
performance
yeah, yeah,
from her, and again, brilliantly directed by Raimi. But it's
yeah.
just it's the trajectory, the starting point, and the trajectory of her character, and also, and one thing that I really, I'm almost mad about almost in this is the woman turns evil because of children storyline. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. You know, mothers have a special connection with their children, parents have special connections with their children. Do we need another film where a female protagonist antagonist is driven to do something because of threat to children and where she's motivated by um, motherhood? I, I think it diminishes Wanda as a character because she's more than that. And I think to pile all that onto her, I think she deserved better. I think the character deserved better than what she was given. However, taking the film in isolation, it works, and it
Yes,
works
yeah,
for the plot.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah, because it almost like negates Wanda Vision and that the character progression
yeah,
and that story, to where so whenever you talked about there's um the marketing of this movie
mm,
kind of doesn't sell you the right thing. I even like I have the log line pulled up on IMDb,
right,
and because I read it last night after the movie. And so it says Doctor Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens the doorway to multiverse. There's other stuff after that, but that right there, I didn't get in this movie.
no,
Um, it's Wanda, and it's almost like it's hiding the ball, like
mm-hmm,
where it's like trying to trick you, which is fine.
yeah,
Like I
which
enjoyed
is
it in
fine.
the movie. Yeah. But whenever it hits the point where he goes and talks to Wanda the first time,
Mm,
which is what we saw in the
yeah,
trailer that was after No Way Home.
yeah,
Um, that scene And I think a lot of what I had with the first act was it jumps around, kind of like the end of Moon Knight did,
Yeah.
where it's like everything's happening very quickly, and we at least we get into the good stuff,
Mm.
the really good stuff later on. But that scene hits, and they're talking in the field, and then she says the America's name, and he realizes, oh no, I, as an audience member, was behind on the revelation that he had,
Mm.
which I think is somewhat intentional. But the reason I felt like I was behind was because I understood Wanda to have grown as a
Yep.
character from WandaVision past that point,
Mm-hmm.
and so I felt like she was taking a step back as the character um, that we had understood. So that was it took me a little bit to catch up and be like, oh no, yeah, she is bad. What like in I'm sure a lot of the rhetoric is probably going to be like, well, the book it was kind of turning her more evil than she was.
Yeah, I mean, it's not subtle, is it? It's called the Dark Hold. You know,
No,
it's
no,
not a subtle name for that, and you know, it had a dark hold over her, and I'm sure. But again, I don't think that robs her. I think that robs her of agency, and I think that's a shame.
yeah, yeah,
In
definitely,
this, and you know what I think. You know what I think. As we're talking about this, I think this is two movies. I think this is two movies, and I think that you have. I think you should be. We should be dealing with the multiverse issues that were brought about by Spider-Man and Loki and things like that. In the first movie, he goes and he gets Wanda, who has grown and has changed, and has kind of become a more powerful. And we go through this thing. She's forced to use the dark hold to kind of try and settle things in whatever way, and it corrupts her. Her deepest desires come out, and she then and then she turns, and then you have the kind of the climactic battle at Karmatage, and then everything that happens after that is your second movie, is your climax to that,
yeah,
and trying to put
yeah,
down Wanda, because it gives her an opportunity to grow as a character, and it gives her an opportunity to actually to gives her agency. It gives her agency, but and also removes agency from her in a way that is more interesting and more overt. And makes it actually a reason for it. I also missed Paul Bettany as well. I feel as though
yeah.
that
Oh yeah, of
that should
course.
have been. I always miss Paul Bettany. Just every day I miss him. But I missed him in this. I think that could have been an element in there. I feel as though he was conspicuous by his absence here. When you're looking at these other realities, and all of them, I've got these exact same kids that I had in this made up
True. Yeah.
thing that I did,
Hmm.
and no Vision. Uh,
Yeah.
I
Vision is dead in every,
Yeah,
or is not non-existent at least.
yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I
Yeah.
think it's
There's and that's you can't cover all of that. Like
no,
whenever you talk about a multiverse, you can't cover all of that. You're always going to talk yourself.
mm,
If you think about it too long, you're always going to talk through plot holes.
yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's like, so it does require some disbelief,
Oh, of
but
course. With all
is
these Marvel things, that there's a
well, of
little bit
course,
of suspension of disbelief involved for sure. And I'm happy, to do that when it comes to people being able to use chaos magic and sling rings and things like that. I'm all for it. But character motivations, not so much. Um,
yeah, yeah. I do feel like there was a lot of character stuff that was like juicy and like fun to play around with. It does feel almost like it's trying to do two things partially,
mhm.
um, like script wise,
Yeah,
because it has to exist. As a superhero movie, but it's still also dealing with very deep character stuff. Even like, and I loved how I may have been more of a fan of Wanda's personal journey in just this one,
mhm.
but would agree on the grander scale that it
Yeah,
does do her a disservice, especially if this is going to be the end, um,
that's
to
it.
her character. Because, like, I have a hard time believing that you can go into this other universe, completely wreck it, and then leave and not say anything else. Like we don't even
Yeah.
get a post-credit scene
No,
from
nothing.
that universe. And I forget his name. His friend Baron Mordo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not his friend, but like, you know.
Yeah.
They have their problems. But like he's
They do.
left in that little like
Pit thing.
moat, whatever, pit
Yeah.
thing, yeah. And it never comes back to him. Like, so that's insignificant, is for us insignificant after that moment. Why not just murder him? Like, you've already killed everyone else.
Yeah.
Give us one more death.
Yeah.
So maybe there was something cut there. I don't know, but just that's the problem that I had tonally, was just going in completely wrecking shop in the most violent way that the MCU has ever done to this point. And then going back and acting like it didn't happen, especially going back into our PG-13 MCU, where, you know, we don't really see on camera deaths. Like if you look at the Avengers, the first of the Avengers. So like there's those problems. But I think for the ending of her character, it was a little, there was interesting stuff character wise, but then to go back and be like, oh, but now I'm going to wreck this place and bring it down upon me.
Yeah.
My eyes can't just do that.
No, you just roll it. I'm like, just rolling my eyes at that point. Honestly, it's like I think the thing that troubles me about it is woman achieves great power after losing much. Woman motivated by loss and becomes evil. Woman dies. I think there are troubling implications there, and I think there are troubling narrative points there.
I would have rather have had a full-on, and maybe this is studio stuff because you're still dealing with a kids, like a quote unquote kids movie.
Sure.
Which, yikes!
Oh, wow, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. Imagine you're taking your dude, like little Timmy. Little Timmy's like, oh, Doctor Strange is my favorite. Oh my god. Like
I love Mr. Fantastic. Watch him unravel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, good God. So dark. Watch this guy's head explode, which is probably the most gruesome to me, was that tone shift where he just like blows out the back of his head. But I love that stuff. But I think for me, it's effective, but it also is like not set up from the beginning, so you don't really know what you're going into.
Feels out of place. Yeah, I think we've got some pretty major. There are two major points there that I think are troubling here. But one thing we haven't spoken about is Doctor Strange. And I think, to be honest with you, that again is a bit of an issue for me as part of this film.
Really?
Given that there are three different versions of him, I feel he gets lost. And I feel he is a little bit overlooked in some of this. His though I enjoyed him sailing away from the wedding to go and save the person, seeing him actually being like a traditional superhero kind of vibe, like going off and doing that in the way Spider-Man might do or something like that. Because we don't actually get a lot of that in the MCU. We get a lot of big stakes, but we don't get a lot of personal person screams around the corner, I'm going to go and save the day because I'm a superhero on the street. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed his sort of his growth as a character, and I liked seeing his love interest again. I forget the name of the character now. But yeah,
Christine Palmer.
Christine, thank you, Christine Palmer. I enjoyed seeing her back again, and I thought it was quite neat the way they did that. But there's not a lot, there's not a huge amount going on there. And given the fact that they're picking up threads from the first Doctor Strange movie, and we've seen him in 1, 2, 3 films since then, and in major roles, Infinity War, he was a huge part of that.
Plot-wise,
absolutely. And then later on in, and Spider-Man, obviously, and you do kind of get there's a nod to that. He says something along the lines of, I had to give things up, and I had to put things to one side, and I got dusted, blah blah blah, and they deal with some of that stuff. But the main threads are picked up from the previous Doctor Strange movie, not from in terms of the character. I felt anyway, to a certain extent, and and that's fine. But I don't know. I sort of, yeah, it's
I found some that I enjoyed the character stuff that he was dealing with through this. Um, I think the thing that I liked was the journey that he was on as a character, uh, maybe juxtaposed to Wanda's journey.
mm,
Um, I found that the most interesting from the script, like
that's true.
from the view
Yeah,
of the script.
that's very true.
Uh, and that's why I feel like maybe it was doing two things partially, because it's trying to exist on a in the superhero genre also, like Moon Knight was. We talked about
Yeah,
that like
yeah,
in relation, but um, there's a lot I really liked about this. There's the
yeah.
moment, uh, one of of course the highlight, but whenever Xavier rolls in on
Oh,
the classic animated suit with
the little,
the wheel,
yeah,
the chair,
yeah,
and then
the little music
the
thing.
music cue. Yeah, like
Na-na-na-na-na.
I loved that it was like, okay, this is a multiverse, so in this universe, the we're acknowledging even that theme from
Yeah,
the animated series.
yeah, yeah.
Loved it.
So
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
so much fun. And then we're gonna murder him violently and break his neck. You know this character. You
Yeah,
know this character that you've already watched die violently in a very complex story.
yeah,
Charles gets stabbed by who he thinks is his surrogate
yeah.
son.
He
Just
he
watch him
also
die. He's
Yeah, he
also going to
also
get his neck.
before that he gets
Oh,
turned into dust by someone who is his surrogate daughter.
which yeah. Yeah. I kind of love that idea of like, we're gonna always murder
Yeah.
Sir Patrick Stewart in the worst traumatic way possible. Like, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah,
But
yeah.
also, like, can we not do that for once?
Yeah. Let's just let him live. Oh man, that's so
Yeah.
funny. That's so funny. Just killing Patrick Stewart in the most dramatic way possible. You
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah.
I messaged John after this talking about kind of graphic stuff. I messaged John after this and said like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness or Chekhov's corpse, because that moment there where he's like he
Yes.
buries him
Yeah.
and then he's like,
Yeah.
who says I have to be alive?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
there he
that
is.
is
Yeah.
like, yeah, that is the hardest Chekhov's corpse, because that's set up from frame one.
Literally, like it is, and apologies, Brad. That's usually your thing to come up with Chekhov
Yeah,
something or
yeah.
other, but it's yeah,
But he's still
Chekhov's.
stuck in an airport somewhere.
He's still stuck in an airport somewhere. So sorry, man. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, look, this film, it is madness, and I think that
Yeah, it really is.
I think tonally, character wise, there's a lot going on there. It has to do an awful lot. I don't feel it delivers on all of it, but on some things, visually, it's an incredible visual, an
Oh my
incredible visual
God.
experience. Like
Such a trip.
such a trip. Like
There's yeah.
it's a real achievement, and almost Nolan in its execution in places. That you can feel the visual kind of inspiration coming off Inception and Tenet and things like that. It has that kind of vibe to it, and which is yeah, I mean, great,
Yeah. Yeah.
just so great.
I think that anyone I I like the script. I watched there's some interviews with Raimi and the Michael Waldron.
Hmm.
And they seem to, I like what they say about working together, from the script to the direction.
Yeah,
So like, there's some good stuff there. But I think without Raimi, you this falls apart,
yeah, I agree.
because it's already hanging on by threads,
Mm.
because of the way that he makes movies. And that's why I don't think anyone else could do it,
Yeah,
and dance
yeah,
between this, because like, I think he's almost like he's like a a goofy jazz player is the way that I feel like when I watch his movies.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't work and they just jump around everywhere, tonally, stylistically. He kind of just does what he wants. And
Yeah,
to get
man.
that
Yeah.
in a Marvel movie, I really liked.
Yeah.
Last point on Wanda
Yeah.
as a character, if we're talking about her wrap up, which if that falls on her, does she die? Because we've already been sold that she's a very powerful. She can take blasts of magic and
Yeah.
not die.
I don't
I don't know.
entirely believe she's gone, but yeah. I hope not.
Yeah,
I hope not.
if she is, I would have rather have had something more tragic than the shift. I really enjoyed the moment uh, where she gets to see um, the the way that her kids would see her doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That was a cool character beat through action. So like there's threads of that in here that I really enjoyed, and then on top of everything else we've talked about that we liked, I overall really enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would have to go back and then try to say like to wrap Wanda up as a character that way was a little uh like almost like give us something more like Macbeth, like
Yeah.
chop his head off, chop her head
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Do it.
Like she's done all this terrible stuff. She's the antagonist to this movie
Mm.
who's murdered these superheroes that you were excited to see.
Yeah.
And then to be like, no, but I know I was wrong. Yeah, it felt a little weird to not get that justice.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you look at her arc from Ultron through to now. You know, it's a weird arc. Like, and you know, and the truth is, it's not an arc. It's not an arc at all. It's just stuff happens to her, and it feels as though they started on something with in Infinity War. She felt as a new character in Infinity War, and we started going through that, and then we got her in WandaVision. And then this just feels like a weird conclusion to that, and I just don't believe that was what they planned for her. I don't know. Maybe stuff's changed. I just
this may weigh into what we're talking about, but I did read that this was supposed to come out before No Way Home, but COVID swapped the two releases.
Interesting. Okay.
Don't know how that weighs in, but maybe that's where some of the cause and effect of the multiverse kind of with where in this one you get the like we saw those, or Spider-Man or whatever you said.
Yeah.
Like maybe that because those flipped, since this was supposed to be before that, maybe that weighs into that.
In my world, that would explain some of the weird elements of both films, actually, because there are elements of Spider-Man No Way Home where I felt, you know, the premise of, hey, we're going to pull people in from multiple universes kind of felt a little bit like,
where'd this come from?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why would that be a thing? And you know, but maybe that makes sense. And it's, you know, we're not here to talk about that, but maybe that is, it's interesting to have that context. Yeah, for sure.
Because there is, like, we can, you know, as fans or whatever, we can, you know, dissect movies and the finished product, but there are real world circumstances that weigh into making movies.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, I enjoyed it while I was in the room and I was in the cinema. I loved it. It was like you say, it was a proper trip. It was a real ride and a real experience to do this. And I think that is squarely on the shoulders of Sam Raimi. And a huge props to him for actually doing this. I think it's a massive achievement. And you know, as we've covered in great detail, there are things about this that I don't think work. And for me, honestly, the thing I'm most interested in now is what comes next. What happens next? Clearly, the idea here is that we are introducing X-Men and Fantastic Four via the multiverse. That seems to be what the plan is going to be. So, and are they setting up an idea of an incursion? Is this a thing? Are we going to get two realities that get smashed together later down the line? And that's how these things come together. Is the MCU going to collide with another reality? who knows? You know, but
Yeah, right.
who knows? But it's and if they do that, is that how are they going to be able to pull that off? Have they got enough set up for that? Don't know. And that, but what I would say is, whilst to my final thought on this is that I enjoyed the film, but it makes me nervous for the future. And I think
Yeah.
that's pretty much sums up how I feel about it, I think.
Yeah. I think so don't know if many people have put this together or how many people have put this together. I just did last night. So
Okay.
this movie came out on Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, okay, right.
Thematically fits
It does,
and
yeah.
is a funny release on Mother's Day, given its themes, its story, and its acronym is Multiverse of Madness, Mom. So just wanted to drop that in.
Well, I mean, I'm going to rely on you now whenever we do anything like this to provide fun facts to end the video on. No, every time. You've started a tradition here now.
Oh, we can't come up with something.
Caleb's fun facts is what we're going to be.
Yeah. We'll have a slide pop in.
Yeah.
Fun music play.
Fun music from Caleb. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, man. This has been fun. I feel better afterwards. You know, I think we should start calling these like therapy sessions rather than reviews because honestly, every time I feel better after them. But it's good. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, currently showing in theaters, cinemas, movie places of all kinds, and probably quite soon to drop onto Disney Plus, I have no doubt. So go see that if you haven't. What are you doing watching this video if you haven't seen it? For goodness sake, go away. What are you playing at? Don't tell me off for saying go away. If you have enjoyed that, then you can check out other MCU reviews that we've done, including a whole load on Moon Knight recently. And various other bits and bobs over the span of this podcast. So yeah, like it, subscribe to it. We do fun stuff. Come hang out with us. It's nice. So until the next time, we will see you very soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.